Alrighty, you guys, welcome out to Smoking Syncretism. I'm here again with another video. Finally, right? It's been over a month. I'm sorry it's been so long. Shoot, I've had to redo this video for like the 5th time now. There is a lot of information here, you fellas. So, welcome back, all. Welcome anyone new. Thanks for clicking on this video. And letting me share some information with you. Alright, let's see what's new. Alrighty, so this is a big event, y'all. This is gonna be a whopping video. I got a lot to show you guys, and if you have heard about the Eclipse, stay tuned because I'm gonna tie some dots together, tie up some loose ends, connect some dots for y'all, and I'm going to particularly talk about in this video local history to do with Little Egypt. I'm currently located. I am in Johnson County, Southern Illinois, Little Egypt. Yeah, when I first moved here, I got was when I first started getting syncretism flowing, and I feel like my intuition guided me to this stuff. I didn't even know at the time. I heard about it a little bit after I had moved here. But when I first moved here, I wasn't even thinking about this. And let me just show you guys. So, on to sun. This camp is not too far from where I live. This Camp on to sun, and it's one of the first places I went when I moved here. And I thought there was something. I thought there was something a little more to it. You know, it's a Catholic youth camp. And first thing I kind of suspected was, so like Catholic youth camp. I was thinking like sexual abuse history kind of stuff, and then after I'd been there on the land and whatnot, before I'd seen the sign, because I had gone through not the main entrance, but I'd gone through the other way to hike and whatnot, and I've thought that I had a feeling that this was definitely sacred land at one point, you know, like it belonged to some native people. And turns out I was actually right about both things. So yeah, this is one spot in Little Egypt that I personally went to, and there's some connections here that I made to my other research. And so Camp Mondesant is dedicated to the memory of Saint Isaac Jogues, a Jesuit missionary of the 17th century who labored for the cause of Christ in Canada and the present state of New York. His cause was primarily with the Huron and Iroquois Indians. At one time, taken prisoner by the native Iroquois, he was renamed by them Ondasant, or Bird of Prey. For 13 months, Jogues remained a slave of the Iroquois, who treated him as a captive. Y'all, 13 is a number they chose for this story, for sure. I mean, come on, y'all. It couldn't have been another number. I mean, 13, that's definitely, I don't know. I guess I can't say definitely without somebody not taking me seriously, but when his death was apparent, he escaped, eventually making his way back to native France to recover from his tortures. after a year. I mean, yeah, right. Come on. I mean, I don't know if I believe that. He then volunteered to return, this time to his death at the hands of the Iroquois. He was the first priest to set foot on Manhattan Island, the first priest to shed his blood in the United States. The symbol of the camp, the circle, represents the O for on is on, as well as the world dedicated to Christ, cross of Christ, and 7 stars and 7 other Jesuit martyrs of North America. And if you know about other syncretist work like Santos Bonacci and what he says about the Jesuits, there's really nothing good to say about them. They're pretty much the military branch of the Catholic Church, and you know about all the things that happened in the Inquisition. Yeah, I'd say the Jesuits have a lot to do with that. One reason why in particular is I was watching a video or reading a book recently on a similar subject, and it said that the French Jesuits were the only ones before they started actually documenting history in America that even had any account of the native people of the area. So by the time settlers and everything had gotten over here and whatnot, the native people, a lot of them were already killed off. And I wonder who's responsible. Probably the Jesuits. And we have something here too. And remember how I said I suspected something else? The accused sexual abuse in the Diocese of Belleville. Okay? I urge you guys to look at this, especially if you live in southern Illinois and you want to be aware of these kind of things. Take a look at all of these pedos. Right? There's not that many Catholic churches, and I feel like in southern Illinois, but seems to be a lot of offenders. Look, Robert J. Vonneman, the very last guy on the list. Guess who that is? That's the guy who made Camp on the Sun. He was the one that pushed for it to be founded, even though he was guilty of sexual abuse 20 years before he opened the camp. Yeah, and the amount of kids that he molested at the camp is unknown. There's there's more than one person that came forward and said they were abused by him, and there's a couple cases that are really made headlines. And you know, in the 1980s, they most of the cases were settled privately, so you don't know how many kids got molested on the song. You really don't. This creep right here, he's another one. He was asking kids to dress and groping them. Yeah, that's the least disturbing description out of everything. If you want to look at this stuff, you can search it up. There's a lot of them. And this is called the Anderson Report of the accused of sexual abuse in the Diocese of the Catholic Church in Illinois. That's what the Anderson Report is. All right, so let's move on. One really cool thing about syncretism, syncretic, the thing that happened to me, little synchronicity, was I was at the camp using their Wi-Fi to upload a video on YouTube, and I got some recommended videos to native or traditional teachings about the Eclipse, and one was by the Hopi, one was by the Navajo, and I might have watched one or two more, and essentially they're all the same. They go inside, they don't eat, they don't drink. In some cultures they broke pot around the time before the eclipse, so they thought that nothing else would be prone to break Also, the myth associated traditions, and one of them I remember said they thought that a frog swallowed the sun, or swallowed the moon as well when there's eclipses. When you go to this eclipse, right? Yeah, so you take a look at this eclipse, and all of the towns that it goes over. I don't really have like a list right here showing you all the towns, but here's a brief little overview that it tells you right here. The first eclipse crosses over 7 cities named Salem in America. So there's things called the Soros cycles. They are eclipse cycles that happen, and there are 2 different eclipse cycles that happen over this period of time. It's the 145 one, which is the Salem eclipses. It says the 7 Salems of the Great American Solar Eclipse, August 2017. And then you have all these towns named Salem: Salem, Oregon; Salem, Indiana; Salem, Wisconsin; Salem, New England; Salem, Missouri; Salem, Kentucky; Salem, South Carolina. And the name Salem refers to Jerusalem, which is evidenced by Psalm 76, which uses Salem as a parallel for Zion, the citadel of Jerusalem. So the number 7 signifies original covenant and the Sabbath, and the first law decreed over the land the Jews were to observe. The law concerns the land. Jews were commanded to observe the Sabbath during the week of rest of any work. There's also a Sabbath year, where in the 7th year the Jews were commanded to allow the land rest from any work. That there is a Sabbath Jubilee, the 50 years, where not only the land rested for work, but on the 50th year the land was restored to the rightful owners if they had owed a debt that resulted in their land being taken. That debt was forgiven on the 50th year in which deed of the land was restored to that family or person. These 2 numbers, the number 7 and 50, are extremely important to understand this upcoming eclipse. So yeah, and you think about this too. 7 years ago was when this eclipse happened, and here we are, and we got 2024 solar eclipse, which goes over all of these towns named Nineveh, which has to do with the story of Jonah. The story of Jonah in the Bible. Yeah, and right after April 8th, on April 9th, is Nisan 1. And it says, the first of Nisan begins the spring season and is technically the Jewish New Year, and was traditionally celebrated in a festival called Sedar al-Tawid, and is biblically recorded in Exodus 12, 1 through 20. And I actually have a Jewish calendar, and it starts in Tishri, like it says up there, but it also says as like a caption, like on the calendar, where you see like something that says Chinese New Year, or something to that effect, over like in the calendar where it's got the little description of the holiday or whatnot. It said the year number, and it said the holiday name. I don't know exactly what it is, but yeah. So even my calendar that I have that we have. The Jewish calendar supports that as well. Also, there's a guy named Jonathan Kahn that actually someone I know mentioned this to me recently, and he claims that Jesus was born on Nisan 1, which makes a lot of sense because they call him the Lamb of God. And he's also born in a manger, amongst the lamb. And I would recommend somebody, if they're interested in that, to look up that video of Jonathan Kahn and the real birth of Jesus, or the Nisan 1, because it's interesting, if you're like a biblical, literally biblical oriented person. In biblical prophecy, the sun always represents Gentile nations and the moon represents Israel. That's why we have two calendar systems, one that is solar based, like the Gregorian, and the second is the Hebrew, which is lunar based, and the moon's positioning the time of the Jewish feasts and festivals. This is why Gentiles 1:14 tells us the sun, moon are directly tied to the festivals and feasts. Since the eclipse occurred over America, the warning is to America and the Western Gentile nations. Well, one thing about that is that the moon is definitely not eclipsing the sun, at least my opinion, as the moon is not there during the new moon phase. I've seen that demonstrated a couple times. But you see, here is catalog for Saros 139, and you have 2024 right here. And then, wow, look, the next one in the cycle is 2042. Isn't that wild? And then we have Saros, which is Saros 145, which is the 2017th. And then we'll have another one in 2035. And I think I heard something recently with somebody predicting something was going to happen in 2036. So that probably has something to do with that. But anyway, this eclipse occurs at 19 degrees Aries, and it's in exact conjunction with Chiron, which is very, very telling. And we have the North Node the North Node is less than 4 degrees away from them. Wow. Yeah, so 19 degrees, 19 degrees, 19 degrees, and the North Node is at 15 degrees. There's a lot of stuff in Aries, you guys. Mercury, Venus is also in Aries. Chiron is going to be a big, big major play in this eclipse. I'm telling you, this has got wounded healer, Ophiuchus, symbolism all over it in the comment, and I'm going to show you guys why. I wonder if anybody got video of that comment, actually, because it was, man, that is going to be interesting if it was visible, because Tycho Brahe is known for foretelling that something bad was going to happen because of an eclipse. So, oh, well, I thought it would stay there, but it didn't. I don't have a connection, so. Yep. That's another reason why I haven't really been posting. I don't have data or internet, but we're making it work. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. We got a trine here between Venus and the Moon, or I mean a sextile, and sextile between Mars and the Moon, and then, yeah, 2 days after this eclipse too, Mars is gonna go directly conjunct Saturn, and that is that could be when we see like some major impact of this solar eclipse take place. So anyway, that's just kind of like a brief overview of the chart and whatnot. I would look this up, and you can see the way that I put it in. I did like a birth chart on Astro Dienst, or however you pronounce that. And I put it in for Maconda, Illinois. The area of the area of the the crossroads. I don't know why it doesn't want to focus. Sorry, you guys. There it goes. Oh, 1:59 p.m. at Conda, Illinois. 8th April 2024. And so this eclipse's ruling planet, you can see, is Mars. So we are definitely going to see some kind of Mars, and we're definitely going to see some kind of thing happen, or like come to fruition, when Mars hits that conjunction with Saturn. And they're really close too right now. Like, they're 1 degree apart, so yeah, you could yeah, you could even take that into account. Now it's kind of dangerous time to be going out, because Saturn can be like long-term illnesses and stuff, and injuries, and Mars can be like sudden, like accidents. Like, Mars has to do with vehicles, and you think about car crashes and stuff like that. So just be careful that you know that. And then also, this is in the 9th house. All this is happening, and so even more wounded healer energy. And you're going to see this more with some of the symbolism and whatnot that I have researched. So here we go. Just buckle in. Let's get into it, fellas. Alright, where to start, huh? I took a lot of pictures of these books in the library. I don't know if I told you guys, but where the eclipse totality was in 2017 was in Marion, Illinois. And Marion, Illinois is where I went to the library to research this local area. And in a nutshell, there is a lot of look at this, right? Egypt is the popular name for the region. No one knows why. I know why. A whimsical Egyptophile influence had a part on, perhaps, in naming little new places here about Cairo, Karnak, Thebes, Dongola, and from the regional name may have followed, but legend does not have it so, although the legend probably was invented after the fact. And blah, 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 blah. Okay, so, but in southern Illinois, rain fell and there were good crops, and from north came people seeking corn and wheat as to Egypt of old, thus the name Egypt. Neither the name nor the legend is a good one, but people stick to them. Instead of Egypt, it might better be called, if we must be historical, Mesopotamia, or between rivers, or still better, the river country. Yeah, but anyway, that's a little something to give you a clue here, because there's a reason why this is Little Egypt, and um, yeah, it's because of all of the Masonic activity in in this area, and but yeah, anyway, so I kind of had to cut it short there because I had to free up some space. So yeah, there's a lot of Masonic activity in the area, and hence the name Little Egypt, and all these towns, you know. Uh, yeah, but not only was there a bunch of Masonic activity, um, but there was a lot of uh, race wars and other secret societies, as well as um, a lot of stuff going on with the abolitionists. No, I'm sorry, I said the wrong word too. Not abolitionists, but there was a lot of stuff to do with like smuggling alcohol and whatnot when it was the prohibitionists, and then there was abolitionists as well. Now there's this right here about the Heron gangs, and he was this guy S. Glenn Young, imported Ku Klux Klan raider and gunman, returned to Heron a little later. His coming provided new disturbances, and yeah, businessmen got together and offered him $1,000 to leave town because his presence was causing disorder and hurting business. And yeah, there's a lot to this history of this place that people don't know about. You definitely wouldn't know about if you just moved here and never looked into it. And so this is Bloody Williamson County is what they call it, and Heron is there, and that's where Harrisburg is too. And yeah, makes you think. I don't know exactly how many people were killed in the Heron massacre, but it was basically a shootout between a gang and Ku Klux Klan members and the police in the town. So we got a lot of we have the Great Flood of 1937, but yeah, there's some dirt on Little Egypt. There's a lot of slave smuggling going on. After the Civil War, there was kidnapping of free African Americans and whatnot. Take a look at this though, guys. This is very interesting right here. So 1811, there was the great comet. Um, so the extent of territory, which is this is the first page of the book they had in there on the 1811 New Madrid earthquake, and take a look at what it says. It says the extent of territory which has been shaken nearly at the same time is astonishing, reaching on the Atlantic coast from Connecticut to Georgia and from the shores of ocean inland to the state of Ohio. In North Carolina, a volcano has appeared in an eruption a few days since. A flood of lava poured out which ran to the distance of 3/4 of a mile. The period is portentous and alarming. We have, within a few years, seen the most wonderful eclipses. The year past has produced a magnificent comet. The earthquakes within the past 2 months have been almost without number. In addition to the whole, we constantly hear wars and summons of wars. May not the same inquiry be made of us that was made by the hypocrites of old? Can you not discern the signs of the times? And that was written on April 10th in 1812. So, I think I have a photo somewhere of, pretty sure I do, of the Great Comet of 1811. And it should tell me when it appeared in the sky. Okay, alright, never mind. I thought I might have put them on here. Okay. Alright. My bad. Let's get back to it, y'all. Okay. I will post that later on, but I have a feeling that this comet occurred 3 months before and this earthquake. So, and there's other things tied to this earthquake as well. Check this out. All right. Tecumseh's comet is also what they call it as well, because the natives of this land and this last in this eclipse of 1811 and the comet in 1811, which is not the same comet, by the way. I'm just letting you know. But this one that they're calling the Devil Comet is not the same one as this one. Okay, so get a little comfortable. The earthquakes were preceded by the appearance of a great comet, which was visible around the globe for 17th month, and it was at its brightest during the earthquakes. Wow. The comet, with an orbit of 3,065 years, was last seen during the time of Ramses II in Egypt. But yeah, Tecumseh was an Indian leader whose name meant shooting star, and he who walks across the sky. He was given this name at birth, a great orator and military leader, and his brother, a religious leader called the Prophet, gained fame when he foretold the total eclipse of the sun on June 16th, 1806. And during this time, the governor of Indiana, William Harrison, worried about the prophet's popularity, had challenged him to produce a miracle. After the day of the black sun, the brothers had no trouble attracting followers. Black sun was said to predict a future war. On September 17th, 1811, there was another solar eclipse, which again was predicted by the prophets. The brothers' center of operation was at Prophetstown, located near the conjunction of Wabash and Tippecanoe rivers in North Indiana. Tecumseh was traveling and recruiting warriors among the southeastern tribes when Governor Harrison attacked Prophet's Town with over 1,000 men on November 6, 1811. So wow, yeah, Black Sun did predict a future war right there, and then a preemptive strike. This was a preemptive strike by the U.S., which marked the beginning of Tecumseh's War. On December 16th, when the earthquakes began, Tecumseh was at the Shawnee and Delaware Indian villages near Cape Girardeau, 50 miles north of the epicenter at New Madrid. The earthquakes continued as he traveled back to Prophetstown, arriving there in February. Tecumseh's followers lost the Battle of Tippecanoe, but they continued to fight as allies of the British during the War of 1812 between the United States and Great Britain. Wow, that's something. I didn't know that. And he was killed in battle in 1813. He was honored as one of the greatest Indian leaders, both in the United States and Canada. And interesting thing about Tecumseh also, and Shawnee Indians, is this is the Shawnee National Forest that this eclipse is going over, and this total solar eclipse. And interesting thing I really do think about this is the eclipse on here happens in September 17th, and then the earthquake happens 3 months later. So I'm thinking that the comet showed up in September as well, and I'd be able to verify that for you, but like I said, I don't have data right now, and I'm not sure where the picture I'm looking for is. So hang in with me there. I'm going to do another video coming up soon, collaborating with some people from the Syncretism Academy, Nick and Crystal Cavalier. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to have some back-to-back information coming out on this eclipse. They're going to have some awesome stuff to say too, I know it. This was Great Flood of 37. See, this is what we have to check the Saros cycles for, is 1937 and 1811. See what I'm getting at? You have to check both of them. And so in Saros 139, there is, yeah, there isn't either. Let's see, Saros 145, and also isn't either. You know, there's more than just these Saros cycles too as well, though. So it's probably one of them. But anyway, here, let me show you guys one other thing, or not one other thing, a couple other things about the local history. All right. Okay, so I did something that was that's called equidistant projections throughout history. I saw it first on the one guy, Jason Brashear's channel, and if you take 213 years, and um, you add it to 1811, you get 2024, and if you subtract it, you get 1598. And supposedly, if you use a event as an epicenter, you can predict um, and look back into a similar point in time, that you can predict an upcoming event. And maybe I'm doing this wrong. Somebody can tell me, but I thought this was definitely something. This is definitely something, I think, because I worked at a company called Anatolia, and this is on the Anatolian Fault, where this earthquake happened 213 years before the New Madrid earthquake in 1811. And keep in mind, there was also an eclipse and a comet that year. So these are not necessarily projections, but I could see these being signs as well, as a warning. I'm not saying I know, but I suspect. This happened in Amasia and in Turkey. But if you go to my Telegram and you watch this video in particular, sorry, gosh, forgot I didn't have any data. Maybe it'll load in this chat. Let's see. But there's a solar eclipse video I posted in my Telegram. I'll put the link. Yeah, this one right here. You watch this video by Jim Staley, this guy, and he explains the significance of Amasia and Turkey, and the biblical significance of Turkey and Russia going to war against Israel, and it's tied to this eclipse, and he names Amasia. So I mean, how would you feel if you started researching this stuff, and then you come across you and then all of a sudden you come across this earthquake that happened the same amount of time from 1811 back in history, from this year back in history. Understand what I'm saying? So we got the solar eclipse, and in 3 months, it's going to be the height of summer. Okay? 3 months after that eclipse, back then it was in the winter. So do they go back and forth? I mean, this one happened in spring. This one happened in spring. Well, yeah, man, killing at least 60,000 people. That's a lot. The New Madrid earthquake, I think, killed at least 400 people and left 1 million homeless. I think it said. I'll show you guys where it says that, at least. But yeah, there's also the Knights of the Golden Circle, which is another secret society that is tied to this area that I found out recently, and I thank Crow 777 Radio for that. Happened again, y'all. Hmm. Okay. I don't. Yeah, there's some crazy stuff to do with this. Like the Mississippi apparently uh, ran uphill for 7 miles, and trying to find the count of how many people had died and whatnot. Um, I said old trees that had been laying at the bottom of the Mississippi rose up to the top out of nowhere. Whirlpools happened in parts of the river. Oh yeah, these people. Captain Sarpy, he said he tied up on this island the evening of before the earthquake, and wow, it said when he woke up in the morning, the earthquake came, and in the night, the earthquake came, and the next morning, when the accompanying haziness appeared, the island could no longer be seen. It had been utterly destroyed. Wow. Okay, if I can't find it in a second, I'm just gonna keep on keeping on. Get on to the next thing, right? Wow, hold on a minute. So, on his journey downriver, John Bradbury paused at a small settlement near the Fourth Chickasaw Bluff, where he found terrified squatters gathered around a local savant who explained that the earth had rolled over one of the two horns, quote unquote, of the comet and was trapped between them. The shocks were caused by the efforts of the earth to extricate itself. If this should be accomplished, all would be well; if otherwise, inevitable destruction to the world would follow. Others also made light of the doomsday theme. Sodom and Gomorrah would have been saved had three righteous people have been found in it. We therefore hope that Natchez has been saved on the same principle. For others, the immediate dissolution of the world was a matter to be taken seriously. Wow. That's pretty crazy, though. I mean, two horns of the comet. I didn't see that looking through this before, and now the devil horn comet, you guys. So, does this have a tie to it? I mean, the equidistant projection thing, if I did that right, I think there's something to that for sure. As well, Tecumseh, the famous Shawnee chief, when he went to go ask the fellow tribes to join him in the war against the Americans, they refused, and he. Oh wow. He said he warned them that he warned them after they told him that they weren't going to join him, that he was so mad that he said he was going to stomp his feet when he got home and all their homes would shake to the ground. I read that in another book, but look, it's funny because look, I ended up right in the place. It said, when the race lies crushed and groaning beneath an alien yoke, how natural is the dream of a Redeemer, an Arthur who shall turn from exile or awake from some long sleep to drive out the usurper and win back for his people what they have lost. The hope becomes a faith. The faith becomes the creed of priests and prophets until the hero is a god and the dream a religion, looking to some great miracle of nature for its culmination and accomplishment. The doctrines of the Hindu avatar, the Hebrew Messiah, the Christian millennium, the Ishuanan of the Indian ghost dance are essentially the same and have their origin in a hope and longing common to all humanity. The Day of Judgment, made so immediate for many whites by the earthquakes, and its counterpart for Indians who shared the great religious revival of their time. For Tecumseh, this is what caught my eye, a genuine Arthurian figure in this catastrophic tradition. The earthquakes were a signal that the Great Spirit had finally taken a decisive hand in the affairs of his people. The Indian Armageddon was at hand. Huh. Wow. Yeah. Alright. I think that's enough of this one. So it's in the Ozarks, and then there was a second, smaller one. Oh, look here. Here we are. Look, through the fall and early winter he continued his travel, unaware of the defeat of his hopes. He had indifferent success, although a faction of the Creeks did eventually take the warpath, called by the name of the Red Sticks. Tecumseh had distributed among them. One legend has it that William Weatherford, the half-Scot war chief, was finally converted when Tecumseh accurately forecasted the earthquakes. The incident took place at an ancient creek town near the Montgomery site of near the site of Montgomery, Alabama. He made his way to the lodge of the chief called the Big Warrior. He explained his object, delivered his talk, presented a bundle of sticks, gave a piece of wampum and a war hatchet, all which the Big Warrior took when Tecumseh, reading the spirit and intentions of the Big Warrior, looked him in the eye and, pointing his finger towards his face, said, "Your blood is white. You have taken my talk and the sticks and the wampum and the hatchet, but you do not mean to fight. I know the reason. You do not believe the Great Spirit has sent me. You shall know. I leave Takabachi directly and shall go straight to Detroit. When I arrive there, I will stomp on the ground with my foot and shake down every home in Takabachi." So saying, he turned and left the Big Warrior in utter amazement at both his manner and his threat, and pursued his journey. The Indians were struck no less with his conduct than was the Big Warrior, and began to dread the arrival of the day when the threatened calamity would befall them. They met often and talked over this matter, and counted the days carefully to know the day when Tecumseh would reach Detroit. The morning they had fixed upon as the day of his arrival at last came. A mighty rumbling was heard. The Indians all ran out of their houses. Earth began to shake, when at last, sure enough, every house in Takabachi was shaken to the ground. The exclamation was in every mouth, "Tecumseh has got to Detroit." The effect was electric. Electric. They talk about earthquakes being caused by an electric fluid later in this book too, which I find interesting. The message he had delivered to the Big Warrior was believed, and many of the Indians took their rifles and prepared for the war. The reader will not be surprised to learn that an earthquake had produced all this, but he will be doubtless that it should happen on the very day which Tecumseh arrived at Detroit, and an exact fulfillment of his threat. It was the famous earthquake of the New Madrid on the Mississippi. Not to mention, this was the biggest earthquake that has been recorded in America. I'm not sure about North America, but the California fault line is more frequent, but these are more severe. phone died, or camera died at that time. Okay, so widely accepted. Oh, sorry. The San Andreas fault lines, what I was talking about, they're more frequent and they're not as strong when they hit. You know, the California earthquakes happen all the time, and the New Madrid earthquakes, when they happen, they don't happen as often, and when they do, they're severe. But anyway, this is the part where it goes into the theory about the fluid electricity. A widely accepted physical theory of the time held that the true origin of both volcanoes and earthquakes was the electric fluid. Earthquakes were known to travel very fast. One writer estimated that the shock of 1755 spread over an area of 4 million square miles in a little over an hour. The cause of the speed was said to be traced to electricity. The theory, simply put, was this: the subtle fluid was everywhere in the earth, but in evenly balanced quantities, and there was a balance also between the earth and in the atmosphere. It was kept from accumulating in the earth in unhealthy quantities by passing into the atmosphere as vapor, water being the most common conductor. If for some reason it was prevented from escaping, in this way it would necessarily find another outlet. It might discharge itself through a volcano or leap into the nearest ocean, but if a surplus of fluid accumulated at any point and none of these outlets were available to it, then the most terrible consequences ensued, and it flew against every obstacle with an inconceivable violence. It would break out through those places that offered the least resistance. Water would leap out of wells. Dry wells were long associated with the aftermath of earthquakes. Trees, houses, steeples, and other structures, because of their height relatively less suppressed by the weight of the atmosphere, they would suddenly and horribly be transformed into escape hatches of pent-up forces. Then, indeed, would the voice of nature speak in thunder. Wow. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, to me, even though they want to say that it's continental drift and fault slippage and stuff, and that theory is proven now. Doesn't it make you think of the ether, though? And the electromagnetic resonances they've picked up on some of these places, and rock formations and stuff like that, and rock formations with lots of iron content, that they are partially magnetic. So all these rocks around here where I'm living, they all have a lot of iron in them. I can see them, and I have pictures too, and even of a sign where I was at walking one time that where it shows how the swirls got in the rock, and it was from the iron depositing. And what causes swirly lines and patterns like that? I would say ripples and waves, like in the water, ripples and waves like electricity. Imagine really heavy water, bunch of iron in it. It gets flowed through with electricity, and then it's like pulsing and has currents going through it, currents of electricity, and then they harden on the rock, and that's where the swirls come from. So I think that theory, honestly, may have some pretty good credit. Okay, so here's where it starts getting into the racism and all of the slaughter of Uh, slaughter of dark-skinned people now. You know, I mean, I guess you could say that the Indians and the natives and the native people and um I don't know what shit native native people and African people or whatever. I mean, back then they might have been African or they could have been born here. Or how do you know that they weren't natives too? You know, because they were turning the natives into slaves as well. So, um, you know, I believe that there was honestly, I think there's black people everywhere on all continents. It just matters like the terrain that you were made out of, or the earth, the clay of the earth that you were formed out of. You know, some people got more quartz and sand. Some people got more uh, like mud. Some people got more like reddish clay. You know, some people got like a yellowy kind of skin. And all those are colors of earth. So says primary use of slaves in southeastern Illinois was salt mining around west of the Ohio River in Shawneetown. Their use as indentured servants, authorized by Illinois law. Um, Y'all are probably like, yeah, this slavery happened in a lot of places in America, but look at this though, okay? This is where it's like there's violent history against uh, violent history against brown-skinned people, and I'm just going to say that in El Dorado, any Jews who might be there likely did not want to be identified. Chances are they'd rather stay unrecognized, thought of as English, Irish, or even unpopular Germans after the World Wars. Few frontier... Okay, yeah. Things have changed a lot, said Ed Watson, El Dorado native and third-generation operator of a shoe shop for 43 years. He sold his longtime shoe repair business to the black man, Keith Dismuke. Downtown business have a few years ago. Watson and his business went well for a while. Maybe local economics hit him. Few downtown businesses have existed. Another local said Dismuke has since moved to Harrisburg. Yeah, probably because he didn't want to live in that racist ass town. That's why. Ryan, longtime El Dorado high school English teacher, now retired, thinks prejudice probably harmed El Dorado's chances of attracting industry. He said his grandfather, who didn't like the anti-racial activity, got a letter from the KKK telling him to keep his mouth shut. Man. Ryan said to the... Dang it. I know where I was at. I've been watching the page numbers now. Ryan said the prejudicial attitudes were held to by some El Doradoans against foreigners and to some degree Catholics, blah blah blah. This is a case where the majority let the minority rule things, but it happens in a lot of places, Ryan said. In more recent years, leaders reflecting the Chamber of Commerce welcome was signed, in keeping with the times. Welcome to El Dorado, home of 4,536 friendly people and one old sorehead. Huh. I don't know what that means. He said, Mr. Ryan, my high school English teacher years ago, told me 2002 that when he asked why all the brown-skinned people had run out of the town, people would just say they didn't want them here. Jeez. I do recall asking my 10, 15-year-old playmates on occasion back in 1940s why there were any around. They ran them all out years ago, I was told matter-of-factly. I didn't know how to react, and I'm still not much better at it. Yeah, and then I wonder why El Doradoans never asked more questions of one another about the young hooligans and redneck touts chasing a nigger right out of town, as they say. Damn, man, that's really messed up. Just really messed up. Grandpa T.D. Mars was not proud of El Dorado's redneck citizens running the out of town. He always said he regretted that his fellow El Doradoans had shut down the all-black college as part of the violence. Oh, man, yeah. And there's not to mention all the KKK and activity too, and the Golden Knights of the Golden Circle. Wow, that is so messed up. Look, the people of El Dorado were proud of the owners. The old motto. Yeah, I'll let you read this one because it just, I don't even want to read that, man. Well, actually, you know what? I kind of can't. I might have to, but it says, N-word, don't let the sun set on your ass in El Dorado. That's what they used to say. That was the motto. That's so messed up. You wouldn't be tagged as a teenager. I felt proud. You would be tagged as a blank lover if you went against the crowd, said Brown, who was white. The hatred of blacks was demonstrated when a group of men went to the fairgrounds after the troops had left and burnt the straw that the troops had slept on. A cleansing act, he said. Yeah. Well, okay, so I know people who have a negative image toward El Dorado. They know the KKK operated freely in the area as well as in nearby Kentucky and Indiana. Knowledgeable and wary, they drew a red bullseye on El Dorado as a place on the map to avoid. Okay, so there you go. It's another thing that's wrong as hell about Little Egypt. Getting rid, but to me the offensive message stickers were for a reminder of what? Where did that go? Reminder of getting rid of the students. Some of the older white people decided they could get rid of the rest of the brown-skinned people in town just as easy. Thompson's story reads, in part, there was a period of great disorder, harm being done, property destroyed, the story said. All but 2 of the families had left, settling 3 or so miles outside at Grayson, or what they called N-word Hill. Yeah. Yeah. Just terrible. Charlie Davidson, the school superintendent, by Aaron as a small but mighty man, came to the school one morning in about 1902, determined to stop the kids to accept the school, to force the brown-skinned kids to accept the school provided to them. And an 18-year-old Tilda Swinton stood up to resist. Davidson picked up a stove poker and quote-unquote knocked her flat. The girl got up and started running out of the school building, and other 10 or so children followed. That's, yeah, it's a damn shame. Such a hard-nosed approach used today undoubtedly would get someone prosecuted for felony assault. Yeah, no shit. And he got nothing ever happened to him. The racial dispute had reached a boiling point. El Dorado had farm accommodating, but nothing big enough to attract large farm slave plantations like those in the South, or even bluegrass parts of Kentucky. Yet, because of the coal mines, it was now faced with them and foreigners coming in as the mines increased production. Yeah, I also heard of them using Native Americans in coal mines as well. But yeah, anyway. At least a half a dozen brown-skinned people were killed and 20 or more wounded in Carterville riot of the late 1800s in Illinois Central Railroad Station. Both brown skin and light skin and European were armed for more violence. Carterville is about 40 miles west of El Dorado. Oh. The state militia was called in at least twice to restore order. In an 1895 riot near Carterville, in which 200 colored men were armed with and ready to defend themselves. So the state militia was using them to try to enforce basically the mistreatment of them. But it still the union and the state government, even though it made it illegal, it didn't have enough force to. It didn't have enough structure really and influence to enforce it. So yeah. Anyway, there's terrible. Yep. That's wow. Wow. Yeah, there was also places where they would use brown skinned women as in prostitute houses. So yeah, they just want to bury all this like it is. This can be ignored, and look, like this caption right here, El Dorado's ignored past, and this is it's Little Egypt, you guys, and the dirty crap that goes on in Egypt. Egypt was corrupt with black magic and all the wicked crap they were doing back then. Weird Mason types and shit. Let's see. Mm. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. All right, so yeah, um, Little Egypt is got some dirt on it for sure. We're about to wrap up this local history uh, segment, but so a little recap. So we got Catholic pedophiles, and then we got people. We got three um, rival gangs: Ku Klux Klan and the Knights of the Golden Circle, and the Union soldiers, all fighting against each other. A bunch of bloodshed. It's the Heron Massacre in Williamson County, and there's in El Dorado. There is the stoning of you get stoned basically for not being white, pretty much. It's terrible. And then also using brown skinned women as prostitutes is just messed up, you know. But anyway, so yeah. All right, so let's go on to another thing that spawned out of Little Egypt, El Dorado. Yeah. Also, I mean, I didn't even mention all the Masonic stuff and ties. I mean, which they were. These Freemasons probably are Klan members, and like, I mean, there's still all white fraternities down in Georgia. I know there's some here. There has to be. In El Dorado, there's probably a couple, you know. But hey, check out this other thing that came out of El Dorado and Little Egypt. Brother Tommy Jolly, powerful hellfire and brimstone Pentecostal preacher. So strong with his flock that he not only ruled over his worshippers with the iron hand, the politicians sought his all-important support on key issues. Not to mention, too, he would trap these people in his sermons, and if they had to leave early, he would make them go for like 5 hours straight, lock the doors so they couldn't leave, get mad at them if they dozed off, and then if they wanted to leave early, they make them have to donate. Like, I mean, what kind of stuff is that? You know what I'm saying? Look right here. Okay, the sermonizing preacher could have eased the driving burdens of the members by rescheduling or shortening services. Instead, Jolly wanted no one to duck out early during his sermons, which often ran for 4 or 5 hours non-stop. He ordered the ushers to lock the doors, Hamburger wrote, leaving no opportunity for sneaking out early. Those who did leave early were chided before the whole congregation to make sure they left their monetary offerings. He ridiculed them if they were inattentive or nodded off. And they were given restroom breaks. I mean, it's just like, yeah. I mean, and then he treated women the worst, although the women followers idolized him. He required them to wear their hair tied up to their head, shapeless, non-revealing dresses, long sleeves, no open-toed shoes, and no makeup. Knees were never to show, and no red colors ever wore. Red is of the devil, he and his co-preachers would say. Uh, uh, H. Wayne Hamburger wrote about the truth of his church. His truth about Tommy Book. yoke of bondage. Hamburger spent most of his life with the Jolly sanctioned Pentecostal church in Du Quoin, and more than a decade in Jolly's home church, the Gospel Assembly. Well, and he counseled against marrying outside of the Gospel Assembly. Didn't allow his followers to attend higher learning. Discouraged them from attending high school. Hamburger wrote that among the ways a cult retains control is teaching that only those who follow the Pentecostal line would be among the chosen group. He preached his followers would be the chosen few early on. In 1952, Jolly predicted Christ would return in 1992, but it would only benefit him and his followers because he was special with the Lord, and it would be Armageddon for others. Oh, man. But yeah, he held the balance of power in many local elections. Yeah. He was able to keep the city free of alcohol by simply telling his followers to vote against the sale of alcohol. So he had that much influence. Makes you wonder too, like what kind of people were these two? If they were just okay with the all the racism and stuff. I mean, I guess this was later on. This is later on the 1900s, so you know. But Hamburger used his book Yoke of Bondage to detail his life in non-denominational gospel church assembly churches. Splinters of the early 1900s Pentecostal movement. And till 1991, Tommy Jolly assaulted girls or women. They complained they never got past Jolly and his fellow preachers. Perhaps the victims assumed no one would believe them. Finally, a 24-year-old woman from the St. Louis area church told her two brothers that he had molested her more than 100 times, starting when she was 9. She said the attacks occurred in the same building where her preacher's assistant minister was living. Terrible. Johnny's El Dorado church wasn't overly large, but he could draw 300 to 450 people into his services on Thursday nights and Sunday afternoons. By holding services at that odd time, people from non-Pentecostal denominations had an opportunity to attend his church as well. Yeah. Although a critic of Jolly, he was surprised in 91 when the woman's story was disclosed. St. Louis police arrested him on moral charges. News of how Jolly was accused of molesting girls in Missouri and Illinois spread fast among the television stations and newspapers of immediate St. Louis area, but not in relatively isolated southeastern Illinois. Oh, where I'm at. Wow, yeah. The women's brothers went to them with their sister's allegations. Hamburger was one of a handful of members who they gave the information that exposed Tommy Jolly for his actions. Rumors of his liaisons with women's parishioners was to be in the open at last. The women's brothers confronted Jolly in El Dorado before a scheduled Thursday night service. Jolly quicker offered them a great deal of money to be quiet. Remember? Yep. That's basically what happens in a lot of the cases. These men only wanted Jolly to go before his congregation and admit his guilt, sign from the leadership, and pay their sister's medical bills. Terrible. Soon more women were telling how Jolly had blessed them in their early lives. Oh. So this is the sickness of Egypt and these weird cults and shit around here. Jolly got 5 years probation on convictions of 1 count of first-degree sexual abuse and 2 counts of sodomy. He was ordered to get counseling and was prohibited from holding any leadership position in an organized church. And you know what he did? He circumvented the order, finding a church in Caseyville, Illinois. But rather than taking a position behind the pulpit, he did his lecturing from the back row of the church. And his nephew is still preaching in El Dorado to this day. And when they went to go ask his nephew about if the church knew, he was keeping it hush-hush. He didn't want the followers to be alarmed. Awful. Bloody Williamson seems similarities between Williamson County and Harlan County, Kentucky, both which bear the name Bloody because of the lawlessness and violence there. Rough edges, stories, perhaps tall tales, are told about times when brown skin and unpopular foreign immigrants, such as Italian, Polish, and Hungarians, that's me, were brought into the area in boxcars, striking miners, fired with their weapons into the cars until blood began pouring from the bullet holes. Oh, wow. Wouldn't be a book about Southern Illinois without Charlie Berger. Yeah, the Berger, Shelton, and KKK gangs. Yeah. It's impacting the bloody bootlegging and roadhouse battles, some on the streets of Heron, between KKK, Charlie Berger, and so-called Hillbilly Shelton gang. Both battled each other as well as the Klan in the 20s. The Sheltons were farm boys from Fairfield and Wake County, 37 miles north of El Dorado. Yeah. So you got that, too. Engel quoted Merlot Irwin, credited with being Williamson County's first historian, as reporting 495 assaults with a deadly weapon and 285 murderous assaults occurring in the county between 1839 and 1876. Oh my gosh, man. That's a lot. Irwin further reported nearly 50 murders that had been committed in that period, with only 6 people convicted and sentenced in that lightly populated area. Oh. So just murder was just the normal around here, and pedophilia and murder's rampant. Yeah. I mean, people of Little Egypt, you need to get out of your cults. You need to get out of your freaking sides. You need to take a look at the history. You need to question what the higher ups in these communities are telling you. And you need to repent. Because this shit is fucked up. Herman Lont's book, People of Coal Town, reports that after a period of lawlessness running through 1922, a period of intermittent violence continued through 1931. A 2-year coal mine strike began in 1908. 1910, a new owner, Swift Mining Co., took over the Joseph Lighter mine. The company opened as a second mine in 1918. Oh, yeah. coal mine strike. Yeah, that's pretty shitty. The KKK, often with the backing of churches and community leaders, I bet you Brother Jolly, compounded that area's bad image with its campaign of hate for the demon liquor during the Prohibition from 1880, I think, to 1933. Some members stopped at nothing, trying to quash the flow of booze. Anti-liquor law, perhaps a noble effort, was supported sometimes by sometimes strange bedfellows alliances of not only clan members but church and civic leaders, bootleggers in their efforts to deny hardworking men and women freedom to work in safe and productive mining environments without regard for race. The KKK joined zealous church and civic leaders to banish legal liquor as well as illegal moonshine, sometimes called white mule. These forces often promoted so much violence to the KKK and other gangs as much as the alleged sinful activity Prohibition supporters sought to stop. Much as those otherwise law-abiding citizens might like to blame. Yeah. But yeah, there we go. Family feuds are less well known than the Heron Massacre and Burger, but they were equally violent. One, called the Bloody Vendetta, was conducted in Martin and McCoy style that dates back to the mid to late 1870s in Bloody Williams. Attitudes and behaviors such as shown in these long-ago events still can be detected in most of Little Egypt. They are virtually all white communities, like our El Dorado and West Frankfort, and they have been that way for many decades. They are few or nearly all black towns too, such as Carrier Mills, south of Harrisburg, and Culp outside of Heron in Williamson County. Blacks live in some other towns such as Marion. They are usually pushed and herded to the wrong side of the tracks, into obscure and poor parts of town. More by economics than blatant racism. But it's still manufactured by racist people. I mean, yeah. And then here's the flood. 37 book on. Yeah, that is all the crap on Little Egypt. Man, I bet you weren't expecting that. That was a whole lot of. That was a history lesson, wasn't it? Now let's get into a little bit more of a lighter subject, huh? So, all right, you guys. The camera might not be so steady for this last little bit. I had to move spots, but let's get right into the juicy stuff. Okay, I know you've been like missing me with all this boring Southern Illinois history shit, dude. But check this out. Now, forgive me for my language too. I shouldn't even swear, but what I'm seeing is most of the first observations made were in September. There's two saying it was in June. I don't know. One says Western Spine, one says Liberty Hall. I don't know even what that is. Maybe those are like newspapers or something. Maybe with the telescope it was able to be seen. But what I'm seeing, look, it says Great Comet of 1811 was visible in the north. So, what does that mean? You know, first sighting doesn't mean that it's visible though. That's why yeah. So if this may confirm what I was saying about 3 months later, as Tycho Brahe would predict, if the comet, the Devil Comet or 12P Pons Brooks comet was visible, actually I gotta look around and see if it was. We'll see. So, alright, but I got some cool stuff to show you guys here for sure. I'm going the wrong way. I didn't realize that. Alright, this was a video I took of this ancient stone wall that the natives built, Giant City. You can go on my Telegram, look at that. Along with any of these other videos if you want. The Stone Fort Trail. That's where the ancient stone wall is. Oop. It's nice scenery. Giant City. This was a place where drinking, washing, fishing, transportation, travel, they make weapons. Indian Creek Shelter Trail. This is a tower. I got a video on top of it. The view, if you want to see that. Why that keeps happening. Okay. This is the Great Lodge at Giant City. I mean, look at this. Who built this, huh? That's some solid wood. Carved straight from a tree, man. By hand, it looks like. This is the visitor center. More pictures of the Great Lodge. I don't know why they're out of order. Bison. Lovely Room of Death. Then we got Giant City. Visitor Center. They all Native American artifacts from around Illinois and other states. Most of them are from Illinois. This was Underground Railroad and slavery art, I think. Art from the slavery period, maybe. Or maybe it's all inspired. Not sure. I didn't take too much of a look. There's some nice poetry and stuff. We were there to walk and stuff, so I just got pictures of all the cool stuff I could, you know. Wait, where's that one photo? Okay, never mind. It's not there. Okay, cool. So here is Evergreen Cemetery, Maconda, Illinois. Here and Giant City was where the Knights of the Golden Circle were. So, you know, who knows? Maybe some of that rebel golds around there, them parts, you know. Maconda, it's a small little village too. Um, you know, it's like a little tower and stuff, and then they got these caves and stuff around here, and all this stuff with like the symbols that these Knights Golden Circle were leaving around. Makes you think of National Treasure. And I think a lot of that money was stored from basically in the hidden slave trade they established here after the Civil War. That's what I feel like most of that money was from. Because if you're selling shit legally, it's probably why you would stash the money, right? Okay. Here's something else pretty cool about Tecumseh. Sorry, I'm trying to get to a position here where it's feasible. A little more feasible for me. So, Tecumseh, the famous Shawnee chief, brought his witness in July 1811. Brought his witnesses, who were often women of the tribe and leaders of the nation, to Vincennes to improve the claim of the Shawnees' land to southern Illinois. At the council, William Henry Harrison, governor of Indiana Territory, invited him to come sit with him on the platform during a conference. Tecumseh denied and sat on the ground with other Indians. No agreement was reached. He left to organize the Creek, the Choctaw, and Chickasaw Indians in the south into a league with the tribes in the north. Historical records tell us that he and an escort of 12 warriors followed the old Indian trail southward through Bone Gap, now Edwards County, and passed west out of the present town of Marion, Williamson County. An early settler by the name of Phelps was surrounded by the Indians south of Marion. Tecumseh talked with him in a friendly manner and inquired about the Massac Trail, but which he was following south. Due time, Tecumseh and his braves arrived at their destination. Southern tribes would not join him in the scheme to fight against the Americans. According to tradition, Tecumseh became so infuriated over this that he told these Indians that when he returned to Post Detroit, he would stomp his feet and all their houses would fall to the ground. After he had left on his return home in 1811, the New Madrid earthquake occurred in December of that year, and many of their houses were shaken to the ground. And that was 3 years after, or that would make it 3 months after the first sighting, or it was visible in the north, right? Tecumseh joined the British in the War of 1812, and he was killed in the war in Canada in 1813. Chief Pontiac was another famous chief who wanted to save the land of the Indians, like Tecumseh. Not sure if where Pontiac was. Yeah. Pontiac hated the English so much that when his daughter was married to one, he would openly make threats and stuff when he went to go visit his daughter. And eventually, her husband Williamson or whatever got so scared he hired a Peoria Indian he bribed him with a barrel of rum to kill Chief Pontiac, which who knows if that's true. Williamson could have killed him and blamed it on the Indian. And then, but I mean, yeah, seems feasible. But by the The Chippewa, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi Indians fought a tribal war over his death. Wow. So in 1700, accompanied by a Jesuit priest, they moved down to Illinois and Mississippi, halting temporarily in the southern part of American Boston. However, they did not go farther. Yep. And then here is the account of the Piazza bird. Now this, I want you guys to pay attention to the wisdom and the symbolism and the syncretism with this comet and this eclipse having to do with this Piazza bird, okay? So, the first reference by a white man to an Indian painting on the limestone bluffs overlooking the Mississippi River was made by Father Marquette, the French explorer, on his voyage down the river in the year 1673. This painting of the Piazza, Illini for man-eater, has a strange local tradition to this day. Although the original disappeared many years ago, several replicas have been repainted in its place by white men to commemorate and keep alive this old Indian tradition. The story of the killing of the great bird by Watoga, chief of the Illini, and his 100 expert bowmen has been handed down by the Indians. Each morning the shrill screams of the Piazza as it flew down the river brought fear to the minds of the Illini and chilled the blood of the Indian youth. Dozens of Indian boys and girls had been carried away in the talons of the Piazza bird to be devoured in its great cave near what is now Grafton, Illinois. Watoga was getting old, and his chief concern was the destruction of this terrible killer. He called his braves into the council on the hills nearby and told them he was going to pray to the Great Spirit who would tell him what to do. Chief Watoga went into the hills on the highest bluff. He communed with the Great Spirit. He prayed that some plan for the destruction of this Piazza bird be given him. The Great Spirit answered and told the chief, "Dip your arrows deep and well into the poison of the copperhead snake and fire into the body of the Piazza bird. This will cause its death." Oh my gosh, come on now. I did it again, guys. Watoga returned to the Illini camp. He told the braves what the Great Spirit had communicated to him. The plan was for someone to risk his life by standing on the edge of the cliff at the break of day. When the Piazza bird swooped down to sink his talons into the victim, 100 poison arrows would be loosed by strong bowmen and sent through the scaly crust of the Piazza bird. All of the braves begged to take the place on the cliff, but the old chief said, "I am old and I will make the sacrifice." The Indians went out on the hills to catch copperhead snakes that they might draw their poison and have plenty in which to dip their bows. Finally, all was arranged. The 100 arrows had been dipped into the poison, and all the braves had practiced bringing their strings back to their lobes, to their ears. This was the strength needed to pierce the thick hide as that of a buffalo. Watoga communed with the Great Spirit all night. Great Spirit, think not of my life, but think of the sons and daughters of the Illini. All was arranged. Every brave was shown his place in the woods overlooking the cliff. He said to his braves, "Fear not. The Great Spirit will direct your poison arrows, but aim carefully." At last the first pink gleam of daylight came in the east, and Watoga pulled his red blanket about him and raised his head to commune with the Great Spirit. Sound could be heard, the scream of the Piazza bird. It was hungry and was seeking its breakfast. Down the center of the Mississippi River it flew, looking for victims on the banks. As the bird neared the cliff where the old chief stood, it let out a terrific scream and flew straight towards him, circling above its victim to make sure all is well. Finally, the great bird set its wings and started down to pick up the Indian in the red blanket. Chief Watoga did not move. He felt the Great Spirit was there with him, and he clutched with all his strength with the sturdy roots that grew there. The mighty screaming Piazza bird swooped down and grabbed its victim. When the 100 braves rose up and 100 poisoned arrows were loosed with such speed as the occasion demanded, every arrow hit its mark, and the Piazza bird dropped with a great scream of terror into the Mississippi River and sank beneath its murky surface. The warriors very tenderly carried the bleeding and mangled form of Chief Watoga down the bluff to his lodge. The medicine man placed his ear over the old man's heart and found it was beating weakly. They gave him loving care, and one morning they were rewarded by seeing the old man open his eyes to find himself safe with his people. There was great rejoicing in the tribe. A large feast was planned. The hunters brought fowl, fish, and fresh meat from the hunt. Braves decked themselves in their finest belts of wampum and their finest feathers. The women put on their beaded garments. The feast was held that night around the fire which had burned since noon. When the sun was high, far into the night, they ate and drank, danced, and beat their tom-toms. Next morning, old Terahi Naka, the arrow maker, carefully mixed his paints and carried them to the top of the great bluff, and there in flaming colors painted the picture of the Piazza bird. Thereafter, every time Indians went down the river, they each fired an arrow at the picture of the bluff in memory of their deliverance from the terrible Piazza bird. So, there's something there. The Piazza bird was said, also Piazza was said to translate to devil bird. So the devil comet and the Piazza bird are connected in that way. But also, think about the archetypal symbolism of the wounded healer, Ophiuchus and Sagittarius. Think about this, okay? You have the snakes, right? The copperheads. You have the bow and arrow. You have the sacrifice being made by Chief Watoga, basically to help his nation. You know, he made and he was bleeding, mangled form of Chief Watoga, and the medicine man had to heal him. Okay, so the wounded healer, and he healed his nation from the plague of the Piazza bird. Okay, and then another thing, right? Definitely has to do with that archetype. Is that Piazza bird. But yeah, this is almost over, you guys. I mean, think about what I'm saying though about the symbolism. And then, if you know what the Piazza bird looks like, right? It's got the horns. It's part man, part beast. It has antlers. And I don't know if you know, but Native American astrology has to do with deers. Sagittarius does. And it's also like dragon, like Scorpio. Here it is. So, and it's got a really long tail and 2 horns. You guys get the point, though. So it's like dragon, deer man, you know, and they kill it with the arrows, and then they're free from the Piazza bird, the devil bird, or whatever. I mean, see how long the tail is and whatnot. So that could definitely be the description of a comet bringing, you know, it very well could be a comet having to do with Chiron or the ninth house in general. So that was my kind of view on that. But so let's take a look at this chart one more time. Give you guys a good look at it. And, you know, coming here soon, I say we watch for that Mars Saturn conjunction, which will happen on April 10th. They will go exact, and Jupiter and Taurus will go exact in April 20th. And the moon will eclipse Mercury. Man, that's probably why I'm having such a hard time doing this video, actually. It's very funny. It's probably past that point by now. You think about how fast the moon moves. I'm not entirely sure, but it's probably, yeah, because 5 degrees, yeah, by now it's probably around there. So, and then, yeah, you know, this is a really profound sign, you know. I mean, I'm kind of don't know what to say or to even expect yet, to be honest with you. But I do know that something is going to come out of this. And every time these eclipses happen, the shadow will grow bigger. So this is the biggest area of darkness that has ever been cast from the blocking the light of the sun. And it doesn't happen every time the moon goes in the same spot as the sun. That just doesn't make sense. It happens when the nodes hit the same spot as the moon and the sun. So also when the moon is new, it's pretty much gone. I don't think you can see it. So I mean, yeah, you know, you've got explanations for that, I guess. But anyway, so you got this little chart right here to tell you what's in the cardinal signs, what's in the fixed and the mutable. So cardinal energy right now, this is really kicking us off the bang in spring. You know, this is a real like bam. There's gonna be a crazy start to this new year. I tell you what, and tomorrow is the first day of the year, according to the Hebrew. Nisan 1. So we'll see. But But yeah, you know, guys, we'll see what happens out of all this. We got some fixed. The ascendant is fixed, which means the impression on this is gonna be fixed. You know, I feel like, and then the dissolution that comes from this, the Pluto or whatever is triggered destruction or renewal, it's fixed. It's definite. You know what I mean? And then this Jupiter and Uranus in the midheaven being fixed makes me think of changes to food and agriculture and work. We might see the cryptocurrency come when the Uranus goes conjunct Neptune. And, well, I mean, who knows for sure? Went to sleep on me. Come on now. But yeah, you guys, this is gonna be something big. Mutable. So you got Mars and Saturn and Neptune, and they're in Pisces. Oh, get that out of the way. So, and then I guess way later down the line, probably into Aries season, which we start today. Later on in Aries season, we might get that Mars conjunct Neptune. I'm not sure. But as it, I mean, I don't know, as Neptune is pretty close to Venus. And it is, yeah, they're saying conjunct. Yeah, it's kind of like a false conjunct. They're close, but they're not close enough. But yeah. What are the trines there? Chiron, Ascendant, and Sun. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose, yeah, that does look good. Lots of fire, you know. There's definitely some fiery stuff going on. But this Neptune, who knows? I'd just say be careful on April 10th, you know. Watch these transits, you guys. Take note of them. Perhaps when, I don't know, but 3 months from now, maybe that's when Pluto fully moves into Aquarius. I don't know. Somebody reach out and tell me that. But actually, you know, I'll find out tomorrow for sure. But anyway, you guys, we got some work ahead of us. We got some bright times ahead. We got stuff happening. I don't know. Maybe we'll see the destruction of some stuff before then, but yeah, something big's about to happen in the media for sure. They're talking about be prepared. So yeah, you know. So descendant. Where is the south node? They might not have the south node on this one. But yeah, it is what it is. Anyway, I would stay away from a lot of overthinking and dwelling on doomsday kind of shit. That's what I kind of see with the mercury and the air, and there's kind of making a negative air element in this whole thing. Destructive thoughts, destructive thought pattern, and so yeah, this is already passed. So this is just like the initial impact. Kapow. We're going to see the impact from here manifest pretty soon. I think, honestly, we might see what we're going to see what this eclipse brings when Mars goes exact with Saturn, because Mars is. Alright, well, anyway, you guys, God bless you. I'm glad you made it this far. If you did, if you didn't, no worries. I talk too much. I get it. God bless you guys. Welcome to a new age of energy, y'all. We ain't gonna feel it right away, probably not, but I mean, I do feel a shift in something today. And that, man, was it weird that it was so dark in my house at 2 o'clock today, in that middle of the afternoon. Some strange stuff. Huge ass shadow over America. You guys, just be ready. God bless. Listen, going to a new era, fellas. Let's get spiritual and sustainable.